Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Paul, so I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Xelix. We've got about 50 minutes today. Whether we use the whole session or not, we'll see. But my one request, I guess, is if I talk nonsense or I'm not making sense, you have questions, please just interrupt me. I don't want this to be too much of a presentation, ideally. If you guys have questions or opinions, we'd love to hear it. Today's session, I'm joined by Jeff. So Jeff's at the front there. Hi, Jeff. So Jeff is from Dallas, Energy Transfer. So they're a relatively new customer of ours. So they came on board about 8 months ago. And Jeff is kindly here to kind of share his experience of implementing the Xelix software and the benefits that they've seen from doing so. So a quick agenda for today. So I'm going to introduce Xelix, a little bit about who we are, just 5 minutes on kind of company background. I'm then going to talk a bit about how we use AI in accounts payable. So this session is obviously called kind of an AI success story. I imagine some people in the room are still confused what AI is, and there's so much talk about it, and there's so many different names for it. For some people, it's this amazing development. For others, it's like this, the world's going to end. So I just want to be really clear about kind of how we use it and what the benefits are of doing so. And then Jeff's going to join me, and we're going to just talk through kind of what the team at Energy Transfer were doing before Xelix, the implementation process, and then the benefits that they've seen. And then Q&A. So just a quick introduction. So Xelix, it's arguably a terrible name for a company, Xelix. No one knows how to say it, but you can call it what you want. Some people call it Xelix, some people say Xelix, we call it Xelix. And we call ourselves a control center. So I guess one thing to say is we're not an AP automation company in the sense that we don't do invoice processing. So there's lots of vendors here that will do really good job at invoice processing, but that's not where we come in. So we focus on the control and audit processes that tend to be overlooked and not sufficient in many companies. And we've built a range of products that really go deep in improving the controls and the audit within accounts payable. You can think about us as, once an invoice is received, but before it's paid, that's kind of our part of the workflow. That's where we kind of do our stuff. We've been around since 2016. We've almost got 100 customers. The team is based out of the UK, but we have customers globally now, especially in the US now. About half our customers are in the US. We've made some really kind of strong and deep partnerships, especially within the BPO networks. We're really embedded there. And I think something important to say is we serve all industries. So I think whether you're an American retailer or you're a British manufacturer, the AP function broadly looks kind of similar. So our customer base is incredibly diverse in the types of companies we work with. The one thing I would say is most companies are large, so processing probably tens of thousands of invoices a month. It's not exclusively just for big companies, but that's where we see really the highest ROI. Just in terms of, I guess, our core belief, so our view is that kind of standard AP controls aren't sufficient. And at the top there, you've got kind of the standard controls. So you've got ERP systems, kind of PO matching, vendor statement recs, and then some additional controls as well. So when you think about accounts payable controls and audit, you might think that stuff's sufficient. You have an ERP system, but that will only really prevent, there's no built-in oversight in those systems. It might stop you posting an identical invoice, but that's probably about it. PO matching is obviously a great control, two-way, three-way, tends to not be across all invoices. And it's also just a process, and processes can fall down, they can be manipulated by bad actors. So it's not in itself a totally kind of foolproof control. And then vendor statement reconciliations, we love these things, we've built a product around it, but most people hate them because they're super manual, they take too much time, and therefore it kind of falls down the to-do list. And as a result, you just don't get the coverage of vendors that you need to make it a robust control. Most people just stick to the top 10 or the top 20 because that's what's manageable. And then the additional controls, lots of companies we speak to do manual audits. They have teams eyeballing lists and trying to do things manually. Or they build things in Excel or ACH to try and find duplicates or to try and do X or Y. And those systems tend to be really limited in their sophistication. So I guess this is our core belief, that kind of the current landscape when it comes to AP controls isn't sufficient. And we've got products that tackle 4 key AP processes. So one is overpayments and fraud prevention. So we have a product that uses machine learning to look every day at all of the open items, all of the master data changes, and in a really accurate way, flag risk. This is a duplicate, this is an overpayment, this is an incorrect sales tax or something. This is a daily proactive control. As I mentioned, we've got a product to automate vendor statement recs. Our view is you want to do this for all vendors if you can. So we've built a workflow that automates and makes that process far more productive. We've got a product for master data management. If you're trying to prevent bank account changes, fraud risk, you've got to be continuously monitoring the master vendor data. It tends to be one of those jobs that falls in the cracks. Finance, procurement, 6 months, 12 months, do something manual. So instead, we've built an ongoing, continuous monitoring platform for master vendor data. And lastly, reporting and insights. There's no AI in this product. It's just about giving customers easy access to reports without having to go to a BI team or without having to put stuff into Excel. Super useful for companies with multiple systems, with data in lots of different places. So those are kind of the 4 processes that we tackle. Is that all making sense? I guess any questions so far? Any challenges?
Sorry, quick question. So on the controls, do you recommend your company sit over top of a company's existing controls, or would you replace them? So on that first bullet, would you sort of complement a company's existing key controls or system controls?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or would you replace it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So the key thing to say about the software is it sits next to whatever systems you have in place. So you've got your ERP systems, you've got your AP systems. We don't displace any of that. We sit next to that. But we will replace some of these processes. So for example, if you're doing manual checks for duplicates, we'll replace that. If you're doing manual statement reconciliations, we'll replace that. So we're not trying to displace any systems or infrastructure, but we are trying to improve and automate processes. Does that make sense? Cool. So I thought it'd be helpful just to do a quick primer on AI. And as I said, there was just a keynote on AI, I think. Was it useful? Did you learn about AI? Did you leave a bit confused, maybe? Like I find it quite confusing. For some people, AI is Terminator, it's death. For others, it's like the best thing since the Industrial Revolution. So, what is it? And ChatGPT is very much kind of in the public discussion at the moment. Large language models, whatever that is. So there's just so much talk around AI, and I think sometimes it's not clear actually what it is and how it's used. So I want to give a really specific example of how we use it at Xelix, and hopefully this kind of helps with your understanding. So our type of AI, if you like, is machine learning. And effectively, you train machine learning models, and then they can help you make decisions. And the way it works is you give it inputs, and then it gives you an output at a very high level. Bless you. So, for example, if you were trying to decide, we want to build a model that's going to tell me if something's a cat or if it's a dog, the very high-level process is you would do what's called training. So you'd decide on your inputs, and here we've got just 2 inputs, height and weight, but you'd probably have 300 inputs or 1,000 inputs. It could be fur type, color, whatever it is. And then you'd do something called labeling. So you'd basically tell the system, it's 15 kilos in weight, it's 40 centimeters in height, and it's a dog. And you'd do that thousands or millions of times, and that's the process of training. You hear about training machine learning models. And then the team who do it, normally a data science team, will get to a point where they say, we're happy with the accuracy. So our model can tell that this is a cat or a dog 99.9% of the time correctly. And then kind of when you go out into the wild, you give it unlabeled data, so you just give it the inputs, you don't tell it what it is. And then the model's going to say, yeah, cat or dog, and this is the accuracy level. So that's, I guess, a simple view of kind of how you would train a model to solve quite a narrow, specific question. So I guess to make it relevant for finance, does this look like a duplicate invoice to you guys? Yeah? And I guess you'd still say yes now. So kind of the values are the same, but of the 2 invoices, the others are different. There's clearly a kind of an invoice number missing. This looks like a duplicate, right? How about now? Less sure? All the values are the same. The invoice number strings are kind of all over the place. So now we're less sure it's a duplicate? So this is really, it's a trick question. And the point I'm trying to make is you can only really tell if something's a duplicate by looking at all of the previous data you have. And that's what we do at Xelix. We take all of the historical data, and then every day we're analyzing the new invoices and things like the duplicate pairings, and we're comparing it against the data we have, because you can't just tell by looking at that. You've got to know the context of the data. And this is one of the most, I'd say, kind of intensive models we've had to build. It probably took the best part of 2.5 years to get this in place. So we've trained machine learning models to catch duplicates as one example of how we use it. So the first thing you've got to do is you've got to decide what are the inputs. So we have 400 different inputs at the moment. And what you do is you take the two invoices, and inputs would be things like, what's the invoice number length compared to the other one. So if input A is invoice number length, input A might be 1. So there's a 1 character difference. So you would do that as many times as you can, 400 times across all these different inputs. And then you label the data. So you say duplicate, not duplicate, duplicate, not duplicate. And we've done that millions of times, unfortunately, for some people in our team, with a bit of help. And then in the wild, you've got a situation where you receive 2 pairs of duplicates, you strip them down to the inputs, you compare them with all the previous data you've seen, and then it tells you to a really high degree of accuracy, is that a duplicate or not? Does that make sense as I guess, a flow of how you would kind of train and then use a model? And then we have over 60 different models in production. So duplicates, obviously, we've just talked about, but we're doing this across lots of different things, like, is this a payment to the wrong vendor? Is it a payment in the wrong currency? Are the due dates wrong? Things like with statements as well, picking up a statement format. Is this where the data's sitting? Is this an invoice? Is it a statement? Email classification. So we've built over 60 of these models that allow us to really accurately kind of deliver value to customers. And then lastly, why do we do it? It's not because it's cool technology, it's because it's a better service for our customers. So instead of looking through thousands of false positives, looking for duplicates, now they have to look through 50, and they find the right stuff. So throughout our platform, we're doing this because it's a better end user experience for customers. We're not doing it because we want to be clever. It's all about the quality of the product. Cool. I guess before Jeff comes up, any questions on this? Any thoughts? All making sense? Great. So yeah, Jeff, please join me. There was a question.
Do you identify root cause so that organizations can correct them in the future?
Yeah, so on the overpayment module, we have root cause analysis, yeah. You wouldn't need it on things like statement reconciliation, but yeah. Cool. Jeff, it'd be great, give us a high-level overview of you and Energy Transfer.
Hello, testing. So I'm Jeff. I work at Energy Transfer. My role is AP Analyst, and what that consists of is improving the processes and structure within the AP department. So I've been with the company since 2018, and the company is in oil and gas, right? So we operate in 41 states. We transport oil and gas through those states, and we own about 120,000 miles. So we're considered a midstream energy company. Yeah, so we're $80 billion in revenue, and we're ranked 59th in the Fortune 500 currently.
Cool, thanks, Jeff. Clearly a big company. So what we're going to do is we're just going to walk through the kind of pre-Xelix state, what they were doing as a business in those kind of 4 areas that we've identified. So maybe if I just flash them up, maybe Jeff, you could just talk the room through kind of what was happening.
So in regards to overpayment and fraud prevention, we outsource that part to a third-party firm. And our fee for them is 14%, and that's done every 6 months, right? And so on top of that, we have our invoice management system through OpenText, and so we have steps in place to highlight, whether a payment was a duplicate or an entry was inputted, and it might be a vendor mismatch. So those fall into exceptions, which an AP processor would go and work those exceptions to verify that data, and that's overpayment and fraud prevention. In regards to vendor statement reconciliation, we use a ticketing system, so we have a shared mailbox in which a vendor can send any inquiries to, and that can be either a statement or just a question, and that would go into Remedy, which is our ticketing system. And so we have a team of 8 that goes in there and works those tickets, right? And so the pain point there is that we can't identify whether that email has a statement included. The only way to find that out is if the vendor itself input it in the subject of the email statement, right? So to sort that and scrub that and work it in a timely fashion, when we receive volumes of tickets, it's a pretty pain point, right? It's a pretty big pain point. And in regards to master vendor data management, so we have two different platforms. So a vendor can reach our business support team to create or update any of their vendor information, remittance information, or they can go into our OpenText vendor portal where they can go in, have an account created, and input their own remittance updates and banking updates. And so quarterly, our business support team scrubs that data. And because we're energy transfer, we like acquisitions. In the last 5 years, I've been a part of 11 acquisitions. The biggest one was in 2021, which was Enable Midstream. And that was like a $2.6 billion acquisition. And so we have a bunch of vendors that might tie into their vendors. And so when it's all consolidated, it's a mess, right? So we scrub that data quarterly. And we find that there might be multiple accounts created, multiple entities. And so that can be a mess. And then in regards to AP P2P reporting, so now a lot of people are experienced with Power BI or Excel or VLOOKUPs, XLOOKUPs, right? So data manipulations is a big experience that a lot of people lack in the AP department. And so they come to people like myself, an analyst, who has to spend that time to assist them in performing that report. And so there might be templates already created in Power BI, but there might be data that we pulled from SAP that might skew that data, might mess up the template, and so they don't know how to fix that. So they go and outsource that help to us, or the analysts, right? And so that takes us from our prime responsibilities, and that might be taking away from our deliverables, right?
Great. So yeah, so I guess the before state, no additional controls around payment errors, but you relied on this recovery audit firm every 6 months. Just some kind of tickets come through, manual statement recs, quite time consuming, no targets around that. Quarterly master data kind of management, download it into spreadsheets, clean it. And then basically teams coming to you saying, can I build a report for X and Y? Yes. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. And I guess does some of that sound similar for you guys in terms of how you work within this stuff? Yeah. So before we come on to the results, in terms of actually what we're trying to achieve, so Max, Max over there at the back, put your hand up. He was involved in the original cell with energy transfer. So I think there were some hard things that they were trying to achieve. So the first was a fixed number of statement recs per month. So we're going to do 300 vendor statement recs per month. It's like a fixed target. The other thing was eliminating that finder's fee. So effectively to stop working with the recovery audit firm. They're not taking their 14%, but the idea is to catch that stuff beforehand. So that's like hard numbers. But Jeff, you mentioned something really interesting yesterday about the kind of softer benefits you were hoping to achieve as well. Can you share some of those?
Yeah, so energy transfer, because of all the acquisitions, we're moving to more of an automation process, right? So we want to create more value add to the company entirely. And so the softer benefits that I see is, increase the scope of our AP processors, every accounting personnel, to not just be data entry and data reviewers, right? Where we're trying to provide more value, and that could be in the sense of, trying to improve a process, trying to progress a process, instead of just that daily grind of data entry, right? So that increases morale as well, because we don't want to do bare and bone work, right? We want to be able to feel like we're providing value versus just showing up, key some numbers in, and then head out. So the morale is definitely increased.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, so some fairly clear goals. I've asked Jeff to talk about the implementation because I think there's a lot of distrust with software vendors because everyone says it's really easy to go live, and then 24 months later you haven't started. I think those things can happen if everything falls down. But what's really nice about our product is we're a bolt-on. We're not trying to rip out existing technology. We're adding in something new, and we just require this feed of data every day from the ERP systems into Xelix. So it is light to get going and light touch, and typically it's kind of a 4 to 8 week project from end to end. So yeah, I've asked Jeff maybe just to spend 30 seconds or a minute talking about your experience then with actually implementing Xelix.
Yes, so that 1 out of 3 is pretty accurate. So I've been a part of a lot of projects through my 5 years, right? And so that 1 out of 3, that one being Xelix, this time go around, was very successful. So the implementation was very forward. We received the template from Xelix to our IT team, which they were able to implement the data transference, create that SFTP connection, and we have that data being sent to Xelix at the end of the day, every day at 4 p.m. So that file gets transferred to Xelix, and from there, That was only a 2-week process, and then 2 weeks of UAT just to do the data validation, another 2 weeks for user training so that 8 personnel team can get comfortable with utilizing Xelix. And it was fairly straightforward. It took a total of 2 months, probably less. And then in that time, we already saw cost benefit for sure.
Thank you.
Question for you. So some of the barriers of companies moving to a solution like yours would be getting their IT department to, they got to get in line, they got to wait for IT to say, yeah, we can go do the FTP file, et cetera. Do you accept, like as an interim, while people are waiting on IT to come to P2P operations, could you do like a simple Excel or something just to get started, or is that not something?
Like a daily manual upload.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an IT person. Like what they're going to FTP is data, right?
Yeah.
I can stick data in Excel and I can email it to you. To get started, if companies run into barriers with their IT department, it could be a delay. Just curious.
Yeah, I think we have done that in the past, and it tends to be a really frustrating process for you guys because every day somebody has to create a file, make sure it's in exactly the same format that it was yesterday, then send it to us. So we have done it. We don't really like doing it, and because we know you won't like doing it either. But there are ways we can kind of get moving quickly. If IT say, look, there's a 12-month block on any kind of new development.
Yeah. And then my other question is, so you have your file layout. Do you have like scripts or something to offer companies based on their ERP? Like you might say, well, here's the layout that we want, but here's how you can program that. If you're Oracle, if you're SAP, if you're something else, like do you offer that to help?
Yeah, that's almost like a planted question. Love that. Yeah, so we have pre-built connectors into different systems, normally the big ones, SAP, Oracle. We've also got programs and APIs in things like Vim, Cooper, those types of systems as well. So yeah, the idea is we can kind of give you a pre-package of code or a connector program to just speed up that process. Yeah, great question.
To top that off, yeah, IT is usually the biggest hurdle, right? So we get blocked on, let's say we want to go and pursue this software company, right? And so I have the issue with IT where they have a security issue, where they don't want another third party accessing our data, right? So Xelix was very straightforward because we're able to just send the data versus them having to pull the data directly from us. So that's one of the benefits of that I saw that our IT team was okay with, right? I don't know if that was just like a 2 cent.
No, yeah, because I think most ask for that third-party security plan.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have methods for that. I think having the scripts would help expedite that. So
Yeah,
thanks.
cool. And look, there's always hoops to jump through from a security architecture perspective. It's always really boring. We're going through it at the moment with some people in the room, but we get through it. Like once IT understand what the mechanism is, they're normally pretty good with it. Cool. So I think we'll move into talking about some of the results. So again, we'll go through kind of the 4 buckets just to explain, what Jeff and his team have seen in the first 8 months or so of using the platform. And I think just to make this one slide make sense before Jeff jumps in. So when we go live with a customer, we also ask for historical data, normally 2 years. And we do that because it trains our machine learning. So if you think about that duplicate example, it gives us a whole set of data to be able to compare against. The other benefit is it effectively runs a historic audit. We're not an audit company. We don't want to take any kind of finder's fee. But it does mean when companies turn on the platform, there's often a huge amount of money sitting there on day one. And that's why we have so many kind of cool ROI stories, because on day one, we've kind of done this historic audit, and then it's up to, for you guys to go and recover that. So I think that will probably set some context now for Jeff to talk about results around overpayment prevention.
Yeah, so our initial goal was to decrease our fee by 100,000, right? That was a soft goal. We didn't want to overshoot our goal. And in the time of implementation, we were able to identify 1.7 million in duplicate payments. And so that already puts us on goal for target. And then within that 1.7, we already recouped 502 from our vendors. So it's a lengthy process. So we're trying to get the 1.7, but we're currently at 502. And then near shows positive increase in job scale. Yeah, so being able to do that increases the value add, right? The team is able to bring back money to the company, and that's a large scope. And so our inquiry team was, ticket-based, responding to those tickets. Now they're more of a quality assurance team. We didn't technically have a quality assurance team. So now that with Xelix and this portion of the model, the ProTech module, we're able to highlight the invoice errors and duplicate payments and be more of a quality assurance. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think something we're proud of is the team we're using, this recovery audit firm, but within that 1.7 million, those are some of those payments or invoices are 18 months old, 2 years old. So what that means is we've found stuff that the recovery audit company didn't, and again, it just goes back to where we think we've got the best technology. So that's not just within the last 6 months, that's going back over.
Yeah, so those entries 2 years dated back, so 2020, 2021 at that time.
Cool. And I love that third point around just giving the team a bit more, it's not just kind of answering tickets, but it's going into a platform, it's becoming an assurance team.
Yeah, so it's going to be more proactive than reactive, right?
Yeah.
We're able to catch human error, AP processing error ahead of time.
Yeah, that's a really lovely soft benefit. Cool. Let's move on to statement rec. So tell us about kind of how that's going with the team.
So yeah, the 300 vendor statement reconciliation per month, that's the low end, right? That's just the average. We net more than that per month, but we just wanted to keep that goal short. So currently, it takes 26 minutes on average per user in that 8-team inquiry team. So it's 26 minutes now down to 8 minutes in the Xelix process. So that's a drastic decrease, right? It's about a third. And then the projected annual time savings is 261 days. That's a team of 8, which is 2.75 per minute per team member. And it increases our vendor relations. So us being energy transfer, we like acquisitions. We like being able to, our vendors to rely on us. There are times when we don't need to provide a response to these statements, but we're the type of company that want to provide the response. So whether we receive the invoice we receive the invoice on that statement and it's still processing, we want to provide the feedback that, hey, we received it, it's in process, and you can expect it this time, right? So that's what the vendor reconciliation module does for us, right? It gives us good oversight, good feedback, and it's automated versus, we receive a 50-page statement with X amount of invoices, and we have to work all those invoices on that statement. So that's a timely process. And for the statement reconciliation module, it decreases that drastically.
Cool. Is that all making sense? Any more questions on this? Hey.
So, when we enter invoices in the system and without dashes, dots, do you read the statements without dashes and dots? When you special characters?
Yes. So the statement would have dashes and dots, but where you strip it out onto the ledger. Yes, we do something called smart matching, where basically we don't want to show you it's a mismatch just because one has a dot and one doesn't. So again, that's one of the models we've built, is it's looking at the invoice data and it's saying this is a match. We know you've just scrubbed the PP off at the beginning of this invoice and put it into your system because that's the trend we've seen. So yeah, we account for those small nuances where clearly it's a match, but you've just got variation between what was on the statement and what's on your ledger. That's a good question, thanks. Cool, so carry on, let's talk about, I guess, master vendor data and how you guys have changed your process.
Yeah, so like I said, there's 2 different methods that we get vendor data created and updated, W-9s, banking information. So either they send it to our business support team or through vendor portal access. So we'd have to go to 2 different systems to see that update. We don't get notified when a new vendor is created or whether it's a duplicated vendor in SAP. So through the use of the MVF model, we're able to detect 20% of that duplicate vendor creation. And we're able to consolidate or just delete that additional record entirely. So that gives us better overview that we're paying the right vendor. We're not paying the wrong vendor through these acquisitions, right, through the integration between the different accounts. So that provides a better overview and just making sure that we have bank account visibility and controls, that way you have all the information updated. And it definitely notifies us through that module of when something is created. So that's what we definitely love.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. We talk a lot about reactive to proactive, but if you're doing something quarterly, retrospectively, you're like, oh, there was a bank account change and there was something weird that happened there. It's good you found it, but it's also after the fact. So again, it's this idea of being more proactive, more assurance-led around some of these key things. And then the last slide, I guess, is just on the reporting. So I guess, has it freed up some of your time?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So like I said, not everybody's experienced with Power BI, Excel, all that stuff. So through the Insight module with Xelix, it's plug and play. It's easy to use. So you just drag a criteria or a category in, just like a pivot table. So think of it like a pivot table. And It's just plug and play. It gives you all the data, all the systems consolidated into Xelix, since we're sending Xelix the data versus the multiple systems that we have to normally go into. So that's definitely a perk. And yeah, it frees up time for me a lot.
Cool. So that was the last slide, I guess, on the benefits and the after state. Any further thoughts, questions? Hey.
Like I see that your reporting is extracting data and then also put in data. You know, meaning, just say you had a huge file of, like, for example, we had, I'm from the university and, you know, we have to pay athletes huge amounts of stipends. And we may have like 1,000 payments that we have to put in and we wouldn't do by hand.
Yeah.
Could you upload that?
You can, yeah. So you would just send it directly to the.
Yeah, I think the key thing is you're not uploading data and you're not downloading data. So we're getting this automated feed from your systems, and every day the dashboards are updating. You can build your reports. So it saves a process where, like, Jeff would have to download, like, run data, consolidate it in Excel. So I'm not sure if that's exactly the use case you're mentioning, but the idea is this just kind of runs because we're plugged into your system, yeah.
On the daily feeds and the different files that we get on a daily basis, are we able to include data that's not needed on, like, say, a voucher or an invoice, but we want it for reporting reasons versus reconciliation or?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you
So
can
if I want, like, a voucher origin.
Yeah.
Did I get it via interface? Did I get
Yeah.
it? Because I want to be able to report on it.
Yeah.
Does it make no difference to you when it comes to the other modules? But
Yeah.
reporting, are we able to include that in the file?
Yeah, so the file ideally is as broad as possible, so it has as many fields, and then you can report on all those fields. But say for, like, the overpayment module or the statement recs module, we're just going to pull the things that are relevant. Yeah, we're not going to inundate your platform. But we can do, for example, if you wanted to upload status, you know, that will pull through to our system. Then on a statement rec, we could show you the status of the invoice. So it just depends, like, what fields you need in different parts of the platform, and then we configure that during setup. And then maybe just the final thing to say is we love working with people like Jeff who've got, I guess, lots of opinions on the platform. So we've, I guess, grown our customer base by being, you know, super responsive and reactive, and we listen to feedback. We kind of pester customers to have quarterly sessions. We do product feedback and we show kind of roadmap ideas. And there's a few things we're working on at the moment. But yeah, it's really important to us to then work with customers, not just say, this is your solution, here it is, but how can we develop it? And I'd say 9 times out of 10, that the ideas we get are relevant for all the other customers as well. So it's not just doing loads of customized stuff, it's helping improve the platform generally. Cool, so I think we're about half an hour in. So we've got plenty of time if you guys wanted to ask more questions or do a Q&A. Yeah, let's do it.
Sorry. So I think I'll just comment. So I'm very impressed with Xelix. So I think you have a very forward-thinking, strategic business model. So all of us in AP, you know, we're out there. Most of us, probably all of us, have some form of the AP automation, right? We're getting someone to handle the invoices for us. And then what I feel like we're out there doing is, well, let me find someone to do AP audit recovery. Let me find someone else to do statements. Let me find someone else to do controls, etc. We're trying to do it internally. What I'm impressed about your business model is you're kind of offering customers, just come to one place to get all your supplemental, which is going to be a more cost-effective solution for customers rather than buying 3, right? You all have to pay the flat fee to cover their overhead, and then, you know, you get the charges. So I just impressed with your business model. I think it's very strategic and forward-thinking. And I love the fact that I can come to one shop. I can, what's that, one-stop shopping? Like, I can come to one stop with Xelix and get my multiple modules. So just very impressed, and I think it's tremendous that you can complement on the EP automation so people don't have to change that provider, right? And then we don't have to mess with our ERP. So I just wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
Well, that's really, really kind. Thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate it.
I have a question for Jeff.
Yeah.
SAP, are you using, what version of SAP are you guys on?
That's for HANA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, thoughts, challenges?
Does it do any T&E, or are you guys planning on doing any T&E related certificates or?
So we don't do T&E today. Whether we do it in the future is kind of a big strategic question mark, and I guess it would lead into that one-stop shop theory.
Yeah, depending on if people are using like their ERP or something.
Yeah, we use our ears.
Yeah,
I mean, it's an easy copy paste for you.
yeah. So, so I guess the short,
I mean, it is. It would be
Yeah.
relatively easy for them to copy
Yeah.
paste. That was a great suggestion.
yeah. So I think the answer today is no. The answer tomorrow is maybe. Yeah.
So if enough people say it.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Any final questions, thoughts? No? Well, look, we don't have to use all the time. So look, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate your time. Yeah.